As well, we had the NSC's main share index rising 0.4% yesterday. We had the market closing at just under 3,800 points, and it's been led really by the top three heavyweights in the markets: East Africa Breweries, Safaricom and Equity Bank. What are you making of the kind of activity we're seeing on that end right now?
I think those three are some of the three large cap stocks. And obviously, they've generated quite a lot of interest particularly among the foreign investors. For those three companies, starting off with East African Breweries, obviously a lot of interest with activities in the brewing industry, as well as Safaricom, again being the largest player in the mobile telephone sector, and as well as Equity Bank as well. So I think it's really a reflection of the high level of foreign activity participation in the market. That hasn't changed. And I think what you're trying to see is instances of some profit taking, and also investors also taking a stake in some of these large companies.
When it comes to rationale for foreign investors investing in these companies, does it go beyond just these being the most liquid in the market?
Yes, obviously liquidity is a key consideration, but you've also looked at their level of market share. And the growth that we've seen in these businesses over the last several years. There's obviously also the fact that we are coming from a fairly low PE levels last year, and the fact that we are looking ahead, we expect that a lot of investors are also looking at the opportunities that taking advantage of this fairly low PE level. Although you've seen the market go up, I think it's also a long-term view in terms of looking at what are the potential growth opportunities that exist in these businesses, because the fundamentals still reflect the fact that there is opportunity.
When it comes to the landscape of these players, I mean, Safaricom really stands out because the Communications Commission of Kenya has once again deferred the much-awaited decision on the mobile termination rate. I mean, how's that going to affect the landscape? Because Safaricom and Orange have been on the side of the divide, opposing a further reduction in a MTR, which is currently standing at 2.2 shillings 21.
Yes, I think it's been a fairly hot issue, controversial issue, and this decision has been shelved for quite a while. It's also involved politics at the very highest level, and I think because of the sensitivity of the issue, it appears that the decision by the regulator is to make that decision with having carefully considered all possible sources of information that we regard concerning the implications of this decision. So I think they are likely to, continue, wavering in terms of trying to make a decision until, they are convinced that it is in the interest of the market. Obviously, as you said, we've had two of the players on opposite divides, and I think the indication so far, if you look at what happened in the last 2 years or so, from a profitability level. That decision to lower the tariffs has had serious profitability implications, and I think the concern is that further decline will have that further decline will result in further drops in profitability. So I think the decision will still await further maybe consultation before.
Is it having an impact on the investment case that a player like Safaricom is currently putting on the table?
Yes, it's having implications of concern to investors because it has long-term implications, whether the cut will happen or not. And I think for a lot of investors, we've actually seen some level of profit taking as well. But the Safaricom as a business has also been looking at how it can aggressively diversify away from the voice reliance on voice business. So we've seen a lot of activity on the business side, looking at the data and data services. M-Pesa and money transfer services, all in an effort to ensure that when the decision is made, ultimately that the business will be able to survive, and grow further.
Of course, it's not only competition heating up in the telecom space, we see it in the banking arena as well. And you highlighted earlier that Equity Bank is one of the banks that stands on the foreign investor radar screen very starkly. but it's in a context where you've got a player like NIC Bank recently having concluded its rights issue. It's been oversubscribed by 238%. You've got CFC Stanbic and Standard Chartered Bank rights issue currently ongoing as well. And that's going to mean more investment in terms of their operations, heating up competition for a player like Equity Bank moving forward as well.
Yes, you're right about that. Obviously, there's a lot of activity right now on capital raising by the banks. And you've mentioned rightly NIC, which was heavily oversubscribed, CFC Stanbic, which closes next week, and Standard Chartered later in the month. And obviously, that is a reflection of banks positioning themselves to take advantage of opportunities in both the domestic and regional market, and also trying to increase their product offerings. I mean, with regard to Equity Bank, last week we saw them strengthen their management team through the appointment of a chief operating officer and group finance director, and indications that they are looking at expanding across the region. So the bank is also looking not just at the local market, but also at the regional market. So it's an indication that the banking space in Kenya continues to be quite competitive, and therefore, it's imperative that every player, positions themselves appropriately to ensure that they're able to capture, market share.
From an investor's perspective, Einstein, where are you seeing value within that financial arena right now? We had Equity Bank yesterday rising just over 1%, and it's hit the 23.25 mark. Are you seeing value there, or are you looking at more of your mid-tier players?
I think you'd also. I think the fact that you have had a very high subscription level for the NIC Bank, which is in the mid-tier, second-tier bank, also is an indication that there is strong prospects for growth for that particular institution. Obviously, equity has been on the radar in terms of the visibility for quite a while, but I think it's also indicative that a lot of the other players are also looking at how they can position themselves and look at also what they can be able to offer using leverage on their existing structures, and also look at how they can be able to grow even further. So there may be prospects even for the second tier banks and financial institutions.
When it comes to prospects for growth, Uchumi's full year results are expected sometime soon. I mean, this is a counter that's been trading at 52-week highs, and it seems like investors at this stage are expecting pretty good returns from the stock.
Yes, Uchumi has actually come quite a long way over the last, from an institution that was actually in receivership 6 years ago. It has recovered significantly to the extent that it came back to the market last year, and has continued to grow in terms of revenue and profitability, and leveraging on the branch networks, and also because of the lessons that management learned from the previous situations that resulted in the company going into receivership. I think those have been lessons well learned and entrenched in the management team, and that accounts for the the significant growth that you've seen. Obviously, the retail space in Kenya has also grown quite considerably, with quite a number of players coming into the market, and also a lot of international interest. But I think Uchumi's case is that they have learned the lessons, and therefore been able to position the business to be able to take advantage of the opportunities in the retail space.
As you highlighted, it's a space that continues to grow. We heard in the news headlines this morning that Mauritius's Courts is to open a furniture store in Kenya as well, and that will offer competition to the retailers like Uchumi, like Nakumatt as well. Market reaction to this player coming in?
I think it's still fresh news in the market, but obviously that is an indication that the growth in the retail market in Kenya has captured the attention of international players, and it will therefore be very interesting to see how this will play out. In my view, I think it's an indication that there's a lot of opportunity. We've got a rising middle class, and they'll be looking at spending in terms of such accessories and furniture, and therefore I think in the next few months or so we'll be able to see how that works out. But I think it's a clear indication that there's a lot of opportunity for the retail market.
Opportunity for the retail market, and we see retailers like Courts coming into the Kenyan space, but for the investor who's interested in making money off this space, the options are pretty limited. We're looking at Uchumi basically listed on the NSE. What are prospects looking like for more retailers being listed on the NSE?
Yeah, you're quite right. That has been a challenge over the years, trying to ensure that we have more listed companies coming to the market. I think the Nairobi Stock Exchange has been working on, on a plan to try and interest as many institutions as possible to try and get them listed, and also trying to review the requirements, listing requirements. So unfortunately, for now, we only have the Uchumi. Although there have been indications that other players in the industry, like Nakumatt, ultimately are also looking at a listing, but it may be a few years to go down the line. So for now, unfortunately, we are limited to Uchumi, but we hope that as the market continues to grow, we are likely to see more and more players coming into the market and offer opportunities to investors.
And possibly that coming sooner rather than later. I mean, the speculation is that Courts, which operates already, 34 stores in Mauritius and Madagascar, will be partnering with a Kenyan furniture firm in the new store. Any indication as to who that partner is on the local front?
I currently don't have the information as to who the players are, but there are obviously quite a number of several players in the furniture segment in Kenya, and I think some of whom are fairly well established. But as I said, right now I don't have indications as to who exactly the players would be. But I think both locally and in the major urban centers in Kenya, we are likely to see quite some level of interest. So yeah.
Well, information and detail on that has been pretty scarce, so we'll be tracking that story as it unfolds and keeping our eyes